What's up everybody, it's AJ with etrailer.com. Today we're going to be checking out the Malone EcoLight Single Boat Trailer. This is going to be bunk style and be good for your heavier fishing kayaks, or as you can see we put on a regular kayak. The bunks just add extra support and more contact on your kayak and gives you plenty of other places to strap it down with that contact being added by the bunks. Let's take a closer look at it. Now what I meant by more contact is you can see the surface area of the bunk is touching the bottom of our kayak all the way down there. So that's just, instead of being limited to like a J style or it's just that one part, or also the V hull style, which those are fine, they work great, but this is going to be more for heavier duty applications, giving you plenty of tie-down points and contact to just keep it nice and tight to your trailer. Another great thing about the bunks is they're adjustable, so it's not set to a standard way of doing it. You can loosen these brackets and tilt them in if you need it tilted in more, or make it more flat if that accommodates the bottom of your boat better. We saw some pictures online of how our customers are using it, and it's really nice at how it adapts to the different holes of the boats. We saw some paddle boats that had more bumps on the bottom, so you could still adjust those to get them right in the grooves to hold it nice and tight. On that same note, you don't have to set it for just one boat. I like that part too. So if you decide you're not going to take the paddleboard out, you're going to take the kayak, you can easily just loosen these bolts and tilt it in and get it to the hole of your boat you're going to take. You can also adjust the height with these brackets. If you decide that you need to switch that up, there's plenty of extra holes on here to modify it the way you need it. With loading up the trailer though, something to keep in mind is it has a max weight of 400 pounds. So yeah, it's meant for the more heavy duty. It can handle those kayaks, but make sure you don't exceed that 400 pounds. Also, it has a max length of 14 feet. Our kayak today is 12 feet long, so that kind of gives you an idea of how much space you actually have. There's plenty of room between my Envoy and the kayak here. That's because of the extended tongue that's not only extended, but it's reinforced here too. So you don't have to worry about it having a weak spot being one long piece of metal. It's actually reinforced with these 4 bolts here, extended out, keeping it nice and away from your vehicle. Something you might not have thought about until you had to do it is the benefit of actually loading it at waist level on that trailer versus loading it up on your roof. You know, J-style kayak carriers, even before when the day starts, getting that kayak up and over that initial hump and get into place can be a little hard. The weight's not a problem, but the height's a little problem for me. I like doing it at waist level on the trailer. It's quicker and easier, and then not to mention at the end of the day when you've done kayaking, paddling all day, you're already a little tired. Throwing up there is even a little harder than it was earlier in the day, so that just takes it and makes it way easier. So I talked about the trailer a whole bunch. Now it's time to see it in action. I'm going to drive around the parking lot and see how it performs. Now something to keep in mind when you're driving yours is you're not supposed to go over 70 miles an hour. We're in the eTrailer parking lot. I'm not going to be going that fast. You shouldn't either. We're back from our drive and looks like it handled it pretty well. I'll do the shake test. Still nice and sturdy. I'm shaking the trailer, so that's good. It didn't come loose. I took over some bumps on purpose just to show you how the trailer would operate when going over like a speed bump or something like that. It does have a leaf spring system on the inside, so it has suspension to be able to handle those kind of bumps. Now the smaller tires might make it jump a little bit more, and I can hear it from inside the Envoy. I could hear the jump of the trailer, but it wasn't going anywhere. It was still attached. It just went over the bump and came back down. The suspension helped soften that jump when it hit back on the ground. Along with the leaf springs, there's some other things you might not think about necessarily when you're first looking at the trailer that are really going to help you out, that make it the complete package. You got working tail lights and side marker lights. It runs out as a 4-pole. They can connect to your vehicle. I have an adapter into a 7-pole for my vehicle, but that's going to run the lights in tandem with them on your vehicle. So if you turn on the left blinker, it's going to come on the trailer. The right, it's going to come on the trailer. If you hit the brakes, it's going to come on the trailer. That's awesome, so when you drive around at night, just in case, somebody can see when you're stopping, you won't have any problems. Also, a nice thing they included is straps just to tie down your kayak. You got a single kayak and a trailer, you don't have to buy the straps separately. They're nice straps that have plenty of length. You can pull them tight with this buckle that has the padding on the other side, so you don't have to worry about it scratching your kayak. The whole trailer is made out of marine grade galvanized steel, so you don't have to worry about if it rains in your travels, or you can straight up back it up into the water. It's not going to bother at all. It's going to last. You're not going to have any rust or corrosion issues. The only thing not galvanized steels are fenders, but they're still going to hold up to the elements just fine. They're great for protecting your kayak or whatever you're going to haul up here from gravel or dirt. Most of the time when you are going kayaking, you might not be on a nice paved road. You might be going down a dirt road, gravel road, and that's going to kick that stuff up and could potentially damage whatever you're hauling. with the fenders in place, it's not going to be a problem. The trailer works with a 2-inch ball. You can see the couplers on mine now. You got a locking latch here that you can even add a lock here with this hole. So a nice padlock will fit in there. That way nobody can mess with it. And a handle to maneuver the trailer around. Even with your kayak on there, it'd be easier. Just go ahead and pop up the latch. Remove our included safety chains here. Then, like I said, with the latch up, you can easily just pick up on it and move the trailer wherever you need it. You don't have to worry about backing up into your driveway if you don't want to. If that's difficult, you can just lift it up. It's light enough to maneuver it around from here. You can see I'm doing it with one hand, moving it back and forth. I can just go push it in my garage or whatever shed I store it in, or you can just set it down on the skid plate and it stays in place right there. After spending time with this trailer, you know, building it, putting the kayak on here, hauling around, getting GoPro and stuff, there are a few things that I think could be improved. And one of them is the wiring. Usually the Malone trailers have nice bullet connectors. It means you just plug them in together, you're good, you're done. This one didn't have that. This one had quick connectors, which is fine. They weren't super complicated. You just put the wires on both sides and clamp it down, but you didn't have to do that before. And I trust the bullet connectors. I like how they're waterproof. It says you can still back the quick connectors into the water, but I would just go ahead and suggest getting some heat shrink butt connectors. That way you can put those in, clamp those down, use the heat to seal it, then you don't ever have to worry about water getting into those connections. Whichever way you want to haul your boat, this trailer is capable of. It comes in a bunch of different kits. You got J-style, V-style, post-style kayak carriers, all three of those. And then it also just has bunks you can put on there too to haul your boat that way. Each one of the trailers has the same base that this is. You're just going to have the accessories added onto the bars on top. That being said, I'm going to take it inside and show you how we got it assembled. Kind of got everything laid out for how we're going to put this trailer together. Each bag is labeled for different groups, so the instructions actually tell you use this bag with this number for this section of the steps. We're going to go step by step and put this trailer together. If I can find any shortcuts or anything to make it easier on you, I'll let you know. So the first step is going to be putting this grommet in our bottom hole of the tongue here. It's going to be at the front. It's got the Malone sticker on it, so you know this one goes towards the top. We're going to put the coupler on here later on, but that was just helping you identify which one this is. So it looks like you just push this plastic grommet in there. It's going to help protect the wires when you run them through so it won't slowly cut those. Kind of just push them towards the back to guide them back that way. That way they don't come out the front. Now we got it through the first one, we're going to run through the second one. This time, just through the front. We don't have to go through the side. We'll just push that wire back down and through the other side. We ran the wire through both tongues, pushed them together. Now we're going to connect them with these plates. We're just going to push these plates on the side. Make sure you line up the 4 holes with these 4 holes. I got the one already installed on the opposite side. Make sure you line it up. Looks like it's good. Put our bolts through. There we go. Good thing about it, if one goes through, all the other ones will be lined up too. With the bolts, push through the holes, we'll go back and just hand tighten the nuts on here. You're going to come back and the ratchet and wrench and tighten it down. Now we laid out the bars that are going to make up the frame of our trailer. This is where it gets just a little confusing, but I'm going to give you some pointers here to help you figure it out. You want to arrange them the way you will when the trailer's put together. The center bar, the open part's going to face towards the back. Something to look at on the side ones so you can tell which ones go on the side are these 3 holes here. This is where you're going to put your side marker lights. You want them up towards the front of the trailer, so that's how we knew to flip them and put them this way. You come back here, you'll see that the back bar says Malone on it, so that's another good indicator of, okay, that bar goes on the back, you set that up there. We're going to drop some bolts in the holes in every one of the bars and put a nut underneath it. I'm going to do that on this side. You can see I already did it on that side. Then we're going to flip it over for the next step. Well, let's get the bolts installed. I've lined up the parts of the frame. I'm going to drop the bolts down in there on each one of these. I'm going to loosely tighten them by hand so that we can still move the frame around and make sure it's square before we tighten it down fully. With all the bolts dropped in and hand tightened down, you want to make sure that your frame is actually a square. So when you go to take a look at it, make sure that it's all nice and even. You can measure corner to corner to 58 inches is a good way to tell if it's out of whack or anything like that. That's why you had it loosened. That's why you have it hand tightened so you can actually move it and get it to be a nice square frame. We got it right at 58, 58. So I'm going to go back down now and hand tighten them completely down. Looking at our frame, you can kind of look at and eyeball it to make sure that it is actually nice and square. It's supposed to be 58 1/4 inches across, so you can measure with your tape measure to make sure that the frame is its box form it's supposed to be. Like, it was a little out of whack at first, and that's why we only loosely put the nuts on everything. That way you can still move the frame in individual parts to get it a nice even square. And now since it's there, we already measured it, I'm going to go back down and fully tighten all the bolts. With all 6 of the bolts put in and tightened down, I can flip the frame around upside down. Then we're going to do the same thing, 6 more bolts installed, tighten those down, and then we'll move on to the next step. Next up is the spring hangers. We're going to put those on the bottom of our frame on both sides. The open one's going to go up front, and the one that's kind of a square will go on the back. We're going to drop our bolts in, just like we did with the frame, and then add a nut underneath because it's going to hang our springs when we go to attach those next. So just to give you a visual what these are for and how they work, we'll run a bolt through here to keep the spring in place, and then this one will be fine here in the squared off one. This front one, we're going to just do hand tighten for now, but the back one we can fully tighten once we get the nuts on there. Next up, attaching the tongue to our trailer frame. I'm going to flip it upside down like the rest of our trailer so you can see the sticker Malone is upside down. That means the tongue's upside down. I'm going to come set it over here and line up these holes. I'll move it aside. So here's a hole in the frame. On both of these bars, we're going to line up the holes on our tongue with those and then drop our hardware in. You're going to make sure the wiring is also to one side of the tongue so you don't fight with that when you go to drop your bolt in. We've got a washer at the end. We'll take our longer one, drop it all the way through the tongue and to the frame underneath. A helpful tip for this part would be go ahead and lift up on the tongue, drop your bolt all the way through so it comes out the bottom. Then it makes it easier to line it up with your frame. And I come back here and use the shorter bolt and washer. Same tip as before, push it down, and it's easier to line up the hole so you can add the nut down here. Now with them hand tightened, we're going to go ahead and back and fully tighten them down. I already did the bolt in the back. Now we'll do the longer bolt up here up front. Now we're going to move on to the axle. We're going to assemble that separately over here, and then we'll attach it to the trailer afterwards. First step, you can look on this side. I've already done it. We're going to attach the spring, add these U-bolts up there, and put this plate on the other side. You see what it looks like? Let's see how we did that. There's a hole in the axle. You'll line it up with this one here. Make sure it's in the middle, nice and balanced. I'll go ahead and set the plate on top, and then bring our U-bolts from underneath. Like, it's got that indention in there that you can line up real easy and keep it in place. You don't have to do any guesswork or anything. Now I'm going to come back with my ratchet and tighten them down, but I'm not going to fully tighten it down. I'm going to get it just enough to where this plate won't pop off and come loose on us. We want to leave it a little bit loose because that's what it says to do in the instructions. We're going to set in our axle now. Make sure the springs up here at the front have a hole through it. Are going to go through these hangers up here. That way we can install that bolt and keep it in there. But before you do that, you want to make sure you slide the flat end into the back hangers. Just like I got that one in. And that's one of the reasons they have you leave it loose, so you can kind of move it, manipulate it as you set them into place. So I got the back ones in. Now line up the front loops and add our bolts. The instructions do say to make sure that the bolt goes from the outside in. So I'm going to lift up on the spring, make sure the bolt goes through that and to the other side, and add a nut. And like most of this trailer, we're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Another detail that they mention with this bolt is you want to tighten it down, but you don't want to crush it. But once it starts to get tight, just go ahead and stop there. You don't want to push in and bend the spring or anything. That's good. So you want it to be loose enough so the spring can move a little bit and you're not crushing it. Now once you have that one tightened down, then we're going to tighten down these bolts on the hangers. We're going to keep that in place, and then we'll move on to tighten this down. Now it's time to put our tire on. Go ahead and flip it around, make sure the air valve is on the outside of the tire. We'll just match up these bolts to the holes on the tire. Slide it on, and then we'll add our lug nuts. Now with the tires on there, we're not ready to torque them down yet. We're going to flip the trailer over, and then we'll be able to torque them down with the tires on the ground. I would suggest getting a second set of hands to flip your trailer over. It's a little heavy, but I'm just going to go for it. With the trailer flipped and the tires on the ground, we're going to go ahead and torque it down. Make sure you follow the torque specs in the instructions. We're going to do that in a star pattern for each one of the lug nuts. We're going to take our grommets and put them in the bottom hole here so that we can protect the wiring that's going to connect to our lights. So just like before, just push it in with your thumb. We're going to do that for the other side too. Going to come up here and push another grommet through this one for our side marker lights. Another grommet we need to add is down here at the center beam, the bottommost hole. That's where the wiring is going to pass through, so we want to keep it protected there too. Now we're going to attach our side marker lights to the side of our trailer. You're going to use the center hole for our bolt here in the middle of the light, and then in the side hole, we're just going to run the wire through. Make sure you put your lock washer and your nut on there. Next up, we're going to install our tail lights on our trailer. The driver's side is going to be a little bit different, so that's the one we're going to focus on. We got our license plate bracket that we're going to put on in between the light and the trailer. You can see the familiar grommet down here. That's where you're going to run your wire. So we'll take our two wires and go ahead and feed those in now. And then line up the bolts and add our washers and nuts. Now we can go back and tighten them down. Now it's time for the wiring. It's not that bad. It's pretty straightforward. We're going to run this wire up to the side marker light first, and then we'll split our wires. We'll go through that grommet we installed earlier. Get that pulled nice and tight. And once we do that, I'm going to go ahead and add a clip. That way it just holds our wire here. Get the clip on there, just put it on the edge. I would suggest hold on to the top and then tapping the bottom part with the hammer, and that'll get it in place. With the clip installed, I'd recommend coming back with like a screwdriver to go ahead and pry up on it. That way you can feed the wire in there. With our driver's side wire ran up to the front and clipped in, we could tell that it was the driver's side because it's yellow and brown. Your passenger side is going to be green and brown. And you're going to do these same steps for that side, but that's how you're going to separate the wires to go down here, back to that tail light, and then on the passenger side, same thing. So what we're going to do now to get our wire ready is I'm going to cut in between the wire down here. You can see I kind of ran it like it's going to be ran. So we'll run it here, attach it, and run it back. So they're about here, so I'm going to cut in between these wires with the blade and separate it so we can make our connection. I just put the blade down in the middle and then pulled on the wire separately. It was a nice even cut. Now it's separated like we want. Take one of the quick connectors that's included. I'll run the black wire into the shorter side of it, and then we're going to push the brown wire into the top side. Make sure it's down in there and into the channel. There we go. Then we'll come back with some pliers and push down on this metal tab. It's going to go through both wires, making that connection for you. Test our connections. It's good. I'll take the wire and run it back the way we came. Run along the end of the trailer here, back to our taillights. I'm going to take my knife and cut down the middle of it to split it. You just need to cut a little bit, and you can do the rest through hands. Now we're going to attach our yellow wire to our yellow wire, and our brown wire to our brown wire. But first, we got to strip these wires so that you have it exposed, just like these are. Got some wire strippers. Just going to help us clamp down on there and pull it out. We'll go ahead and twist our wires together. Before we put our twist nut on, then feed up in the very top of there and twist it again. You should grab those wires and twist them together. You can feel it grabbing and actually see the wires twist too. We're going to do the same thing for our yellow one. So we went along, added some more clips here to take up that excess wiring. When you do it at home, when you build it for your time, it might be better for you just to go ahead and trim it here, trim it to length, and you don't have any excess wiring. We aren't going to keep this trailer like this. We're going to disassemble it when we're done, so I don't want to cut any of the wire. Now it's time to add the fenders. How we're going to do that is we're going to put the brackets on there first, putting a bolt and a nut through each one here, and then we'll add the fender on top of that. So to do so, like I said, got the shorter bolt and the nut. You can put the bracket with it angled down. You want the dip pointed down because the fender is going to fit down in that groove itself. So, and you just want to loosely put this on because you want to be able to move the brackets a little bit when you go to put the fender on. So we'll just leave it like that for now. I'll repeat that process on the second one. Should be the last two holes left in the back of your trailer here, so easy to identify and install these brackets. Now I'm going to set the fender down on the brackets, trying to match up the holes. That's why we left them loose, so we can move them up like this. Grab my hardware. We can get one started so that it holds it in place. You can kind of move the bracket with this hand, line up with the holes on the fender, drop the bolt through, and we're going to add a nut to the back. With it all loosely installed, I'm going to go ahead and tighten down these bolts to the trailer. It's going to lift this up, and then we'll go ahead and tighten the bolts down on our fender. Back up towards the front of the tongue of our trailer, we're going to start putting this part together. We're going to add the stop at the bottom. Let's just go ahead and do that now. It's going to help hold up the trailer while we're working on it anyway. You got a tab underneath there. You're going to slide into like that. We'll set it back down and it'll hold it in place. We're going to make our ground here at the front of the tongue of the trailer. I went ahead and stripped back the wire just like you saw me do before. Now I'm going to add this ring terminal. It's in there nice and tight. Now what we're going to do is come back to the front of the tongue, and we got a couple different things going on, but we'll start with adding this at the bottom. It'll work as the stand. If you guys can see under there, it's going to insert that tab. I had it the wrong way. Insert the tab back here, and we'll add a bolt up here up at front. But for now, it'll work and help it hold up. Now we're going to use the bolt, and we're going to secure the stand and the chains and ground the wire at the same time. So the chains are going to go on the outside. We'll put a washer on our bolt, follow up with the chain links. Then we'll add another washer and put it through the hole. Now it's going up to the inside. And what I'll do there before I put the nut on there is add our ground. Just goes on top. Then I'll add the nut. Come back with my ratchet and wrench and tighten it down. Threw a block of wood under there just to get up a little higher off the ground. Easier to get this ratchet in here. Now that we're done on the inside of the tongue, we're going to attach our coupler and handle. So I've already run the bolts through the handle, the holes here. We're going to line with the holes here. We'll set this on top, line up the holes in the tongue, and then just put our bolts through. They go to the other side. We'll just put some nuts on there like we've done for most of this trailer. When it comes to tightening this down, we're just going to get it tied against the tongue of the trailer. No reason to go any further than that. Now we're going to go ahead and put our end caps on our bars. You're going to make sure you do it towards the top by that single hole. The double holes will be at the bottom of our bars because we're going to put them around the frame here. So you can get a block of wood and a hammer, or you can easily just push down on it and it goes into place. So I'll line it up with the corner of our frame here, making sure this top hole is right above the frame. I've got my U-bolt. Come back down, tighten it down, and then we'll repeat this process on all the corners of the trailer. Now, the last part is to install our crossbar. What we're going to do is install these clamps on the bars we just finished tightening down. Just going to run a bolt through, lining up the holes, add a nut to the other side. That way it's loosely installed, and then I'll just start to go ahead and put the bar in there now. Before I get it tightened down. It's a little different than what the instructions said, but I just kind of found this easier myself. I'm going to loosely put the other bolt in, then we're going to look and make sure it's even on both sides before I fully tighten this down. The other bolt, you'll just lift up on the bar, put it underneath it, and it holds it up towards the top of this bracket. Once again, add a nut. We'll loosely install it, get it even on both sides, and then I'm going to tighten it down. Now we're going to come back with the length a little bit over 10 on each side. It's nice and even. We're going to go ahead and tighten it down, keep everything in place. Now the final step, we're going to add our end caps to the end of the bars. I already did it to the other three. Much like the ones we did earlier, just push it on there, goes right into place. Now your trailer is assembled. As you saw, it wasn't that bad. Really just followed it step by step. Really just a bunch of bolts and nuts is what you're adding, and you're just repeating every step on the other side. So it's good practice on this side, you'll nail it on the other side. That's how I did it. Now there are a few notes on it. I will compare it to some of the other Malone trailers. The wiring, I didn't like it as much on this one because it had the quick connectors. Malone and the other ones I've worked with have bullet connectors where you just plug them in, easy, done. They're sealed, it's no splicing, no channel locks or anything like that. I didn't like that on this one, and I would suggest not even using the quick locks it comes with. I would get some heat shrink butt connectors. That way you can get it nice and sealed and a good connection, and it's waterproof. So if you do leave your trailer out in the water, you don't have to worry about that getting to it, bothering the wiring, affecting anything. Or if you back up your trailer into the water, again, it just further protects you down the line. One other small nitpick I had for this was the ground wire. It wasn't very long. We had to extend it. I put some electrical tape and loom over it to cover it up and keep it nice all together, but it was a little disappointing to have only that much, and it was pulled really tight, so you wouldn't be able to drive your trailer like that. I suggest go ahead and extending that ground wire to help yourself out in the long run. We're going to go over how to install one of the bunks. We've already got one installed on the opposite side. You can see what it looks like once it's on there. Now how do we get that done? We're going to take our brackets and our U-bolts, and we're going to match the height of our other bunk that we've already put on there. We want the U-bolts facing the inside. I'll add our bracket. You want the thicker side pointing down. Looks like right about there is where we have the brackets. We'll add our nuts to the other side. And then I'll come back with a ratchet and a wrench and tighten it down. Now we're going to add our bracket on top of the bracket we've already installed. This is what we're going to drill into to add our bunk. And put it towards the inside. Have the part that comes out facing the inside as well. And the bolts are also going to go towards the inside. We're going to run this down. We're going to tighten this down just a little bit. We want a little movement in there still. This is too loose, but I'm going to tighten down so we can set the bunk on there and see at what angle we need it exactly. Now we're going to take the screws they give us and attach our bunks to our brackets. I'm going to repeat that process on the other holes. With the bunks installed, now I'm going to set the kayak on top of the trailer with them still not tightened down all the way, a little loose so you can move it so we can get the bunks in place, matching with the kayak we're going to carry. Then we'll tighten down the brackets so it's good for that kayak. Now that I'm happy with the way the bunks are sitting and how the kayak's sitting on top of them, I'm going to go ahead and fully tighten them down. Hopefully that helped you decide on what you actually want out of your trailer. I think that does it for our look at the Malone EcoLight trailer. I hope this helped.